What's up, guys, and welcome to the Rebalance podcast, where we dive into topics that matter most when it comes to overcoming struggles, injuries, and finding balance in your life. Everybody's idea of balance is that bit different, so my goal is to give you different perspectives, practical tips, as well as expert insights into what it means to live a balanced life. My name is Robbie Cassidy. I'm a physiotherapist and a health coach, and I've been helping people reignite their love for challenge, overcome their fear, and find more balance in their life through the process of self-development. So, let's get into it. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the podcast. On this episode of the podcast, we are going to jump into understanding chronic back pain, or understanding ongoing back pain that won't let up, that just keeps coming back and keeps recurring, and it's affecting your life and affecting your lifestyle. So I want to jump into it, and this is on the back end of anyone who hasn't got yet. Check out the email guide that I put out. It's a short guide on, and it goes into a lot more detail on understanding chronic back pain and understanding the root cause of it, not the reasons that you've been given with around like bulging discs and around your degenerative disc disease and all these reasons that don't really make sense, but they still diagnose them. But in this one, I'm going to talk about why they don't make sense, and I'm going to talk about what you can do to help yourself, I guess, get over this. But without understanding it, this is the really important thing. Without actually understanding this issue, it's very hard to make improvements in it. And that's why I really push the learning and understanding of it more so at the start than the how you can fix it. Because I could give you all the tips and tricks to fix it, and a lot of them you know anyway. But if you don't understand why it kicks up on certain days, why it's worse on, let's say, a Friday more so than a Monday, it's very difficult to make that long-term change. So in this episode, we're going to talk through, I'm going to help you to understand why it's persistent, why it keeps coming back. We're going to look at the reason that it's not always mechanically based, and that there's actually sometimes the majority of the time with chronic issues, it's more neurologically based. We are going to try to break a belief. This is a big one. We're going to focus on trying to break a belief around what a lot of people think is the cause of it, and then I'm going to actually also talk through why it's often given as a diagnosis, and that comes back to it's actually a physio's issue and a doctor and consultant issue as well. We are going to talk about how to fix it, and then I'm going to talk a small bit around about the email guide and a program that I have out at the minute. Right, so let us jump right into the thick of it. When we're looking at chronic back pain, first off, we need to remove the idea that it's always mechanically based or biomechanically based. And what that means is that oftentimes when we think of pain, what we think about is we look at the pain that we're having, let it be in our shoulder or our back or our knee or wherever it is, and we always think that there has to be an injury associated with that. Now, with the reason I bring this up first is because this is primary. This is the important thing when it comes to it. You can have a lot of pain without having any injury at all, because pain itself is neurologically based. So pain is based in your nervous system, your brain and nervous system. That's always across the board. And that's why I always say to people, you may have pain in let's say if I was pinching you on the arm, okay? If I caught your arm and I started to pinch you, but then I stamped on your foot at the same time, that pain in your arm would go away. You wouldn't have any pain in your arm after that, because the fact of it is that your body has this gate control theory of pain, and it's going to give you certain pain for certain things, and then it's going to give you more pain for other things. So the gate control theory is really important. And when you understand that you can only really get one pain at a time, you can have a couple of different pains, but in a general sense, your body is going to decide what's the most important one to deal with. That's a huge thing, because that actually what it does then is it starts to remove the idea that because you have pain, you're damaging something. And it gives you the confidence to start to work on it, knowing that you're not making anything any worse, but you're actually improving something. And this is what happens to a lot of people, is when you have a fear around pain, when you're afraid that every time you get pain that it's actually making stuff worse, well, it doesn't lead you to trying to actually fix it, because you will get pain when you're trying to fix it. So instead, people rely on taking painkillers just to drop it down. They rely on resting and not moving because they feel that if they do, it's going to make it worse again. And as a result, when you go to an MRI and you get your scan results back and you see the results, you'll say that, okay, right, it said that I have degenerative disc disease, I have facet joint degeneration, I have bulging discs, all of these things which are normal on scans for everybody. This is the thing, like if you look, and I often say this, if you go in, okay, if you're over 30 years old, there's a 50% chance that you go in and have degenerative disc disease. So if me and you went in, one of us has it, okay, and the more active you were as well can actually contribute to this. So it doesn't mean anything. It's like going in and getting a scan to say that you have wrinkles or grey hair. It's the exact same thing. There's no difference in it, and it has no correlation with pain when you look at degenerative disc disease, because it's in asymptomatic individuals. The same thing with bulging discs. You can go in, and when you're over 30, it's 1 in 3 people have a bulging disc with no pain. So the exact same thing again. If you went in and a scan told you had wrinkles or you had grey hair, would you start to say that that's actually the reason that you're getting pain? You wouldn't, okay? Now the thing is that it's generally not you that comes out with the diagnosis. You don't see something and then come out with this diagnosis and say, okay, this is the issue. The actual problem is that oftentimes the issue itself, or the diagnosis, is given from somebody in a position of that's supposed to be knowledgeable about the subject, whether that be a consultant, whether it be a doctor or a physio. That's the danger. So really, I'm trying to break the beliefs that are given to people through a professional in a lot of cases, because they see this and they attach to it, and then a doctor or a physio tells them they have it. And a lot of the time is that, and I'll talk about this later in the podcast, it is the doctor and physio that's wrong, because what they're doing is they have trouble trying to describe this to you. So as a result, it's easier to say this is the cause of your pain. But then again, actually, some of them just don't know. That's the funny thing, is that a lot of them don't know about this, and it's not that it's just opinion. This is what the research says. This is, if you look at the research that's come out in the last 5 to 10 years, which many of them haven't, then that's the reason that they still get caught behind, and they're behind the times in understanding why pain is there. And that's why they still push a biomechanical approach. That's why it's always biomechanical, because it's a very easy thing to break down and say your body is like a car. It's so easy. It's the easiest explanation. And if you do that, in a lot of cases, it's going to help, because when you look at like a sprained ankle, you're saying, okay, well, the ligament in your ankle is damaged, which is your support structure for the bones in your foot and ankle. So it's going to cause trouble, and as a result, then you're going to have pain. But if you keep getting pain for a year after that, that ligament has healed. It's the natural healing process has gone through. It's in a general sense, if you looked at it on a scan, it would look a lot better, but you're still getting pain a year later. So that has something else to do with it. That's not the ligament that's still giving you pain. That's your body giving you pain for some reason. And I always use this analogy, is that when you sprain your ankle, the size of the ligaments that you actually damage is tiny. It's the size of a fingernail in a lot of cases. But your entire ankle blows up. Your whole ankle swells up, and you have pain everywhere. You have pain with every movement and stiffness with every movement. But that's what that is it's your body reacting to it as a protective mechanism, because that's what pain is. It's a protective mechanism. So if your body's going to react like that, in that case, where it blows everything up, you have to understand that that is controlled by your nervous system. That's your nervous system doing it. That's not your body just blowing up randomly. That is a controlled response. And that's why if you get out moving on it earlier, it helps it even more so. So I'm trying to drive home that point. We need to remove the idea that everything is mechanically based. And once you're going to hear me talking about this multiple times throughout the podcast, because if you can do that, if you can understand that you don't need to be injured to have pain, then it removes the fear, as I said, of you having to, anything that you do is damaging it and that you're making it worse all the time. And that's the thing. And the other thing, it removes the idea that you need to always have a specific diagnosis to have pain, which is another one. Now, another really quick analogy is the idea that I always give to people is the Lego idea, where if you step on a piece of Lego at night, it feels like you are after standing on a sharp piece of glass. It feels like you have stood on a nail, and your body gives you maximum amount of pain, and you jump up off it, and it's extremely sore. Okay, if you stand on it at nighttime. Yet, if anyone who's listening to this, you can try this. If you put a piece of Lego down and you stand on it during the day, but you look at it first, you're not going to have the same level of pain. You're not going to have that 10 out of 10 pain. Okay, because your body is able to see the threat, and it's able to accurately assess the threat, and it's able to give you a proper representation of what pain you should have. because of that level of threat. Okay, because at nighttime it doesn't see it, so what it does is it thinks it's a sharp piece of glass or thinks it's a nail, gets you up off as quick as possible, and then it assesses it. So that's the way it works. That's a really simple analogy, but that's why you have so much pain when you step on a piece of Lego at night that you don't see, is because it and you actually do have more pain. It's the interesting thing. It's because your body can't accurately, I think I'm saying that right, accurately assess how much pain is there. Okay, so that's why we do it, or that's why it does it. And now that idea, the reason I say that is because that's another example of how the body can give you more pain when the actual mechanical issue isn't as big. Some common diagnosis that you'll get are degenerative disc disease, bulging disc that's not touching a nerve, glutes not firing is another huge one. Doesn't make any sense at all. You wouldn't be able to stand up if your glutes didn't fire, but it for a lot of people it makes sense. I don't know how. Facet joint degeneration is another one. Postural issue is because your neck is forward, your shoulders rounded. Not true at all, and I'll talk about why. If these things were actually true, or your hips tilting forward, if it was actually true that your posture was the cause of your pain, you should have pain all day, every day, day and night, every single day of the year. You should, if it's your posture, and you should have it every single day of the year for the last however long your posture has been like that, most likely since you've been a teenager or before. If we want to speak in the mechanical terms, which is what I'm trying to drive the point home, is that if we're gonna speak in absolutes of mechanicals, you have to take it in account with everything. You can't just say, okay, I have pain in the middle of March, and now it's my posture, because that doesn't make sense. If it's your posture is like that all of the time. So you should have it every day, all day, every day of the year. And the majority of the time, people don't. People get flare-ups that it gets very bad, and then it calms down a small bit, and then it gets very bad, and then it calms down. And this is the natural ebbs and flows of chronic pain, is that it does flare up, and then it calms down. Okay, and once we understand that it's worse at certain times, then we need to understand why it's worse at certain times. But as I said, if it's mechanically based, you should have pain all year round, every day, for the last, 15, 20 years. And I know a lot of people would say, I do have that. I do have pain all day, every day, for the last 20 years. But we need to think about then, we need to be realistic with ourselves as well in this case. And we need to take responsibility and say, okay, have I had pain all day, every single day, every day of the year? Or do I have pain at certain times of the day, at certain times of the week, at certain times of the month, or at certain times of the year? And we need to be honest with ourselves. If we honestly want to make change, we need to be honest with ourselves what levels of pain we have at different times. And it's an easy one to say, I have pain all the time, and it's 10 out of 10. But if you are able to go to a shop and do your shopping, then you come home, okay, and you sit down, and then you have pain, all right. But if you had 10 out of 10 pain, and I'm saying this now because I want to be, you're going to hear, I'm probably being a bit sharp with this, or a bit like cutting deep for some people, but if you want to make change, this is the thing. If you want to make change, you have to be honest. You have to be honest with yourself, and you have to be honest with your language and the language you use and the language you decide to pick. And if you're able to go to the shop and come back and then, okay, you have a lot of pain in the evening, perfect. But if you were able to make it out the door and you were able to walk around the shop without really tensing up and really moving extremely bad and having loads of shooting pain all of the time, when you were in line, when you were walking around, when you were picking up your groceries, when you were in the car, when you come back, all of the time, every day, then you can say, okay, right, I know I didn't actually have it all the time. I was able to get to the shop, and it wasn't a 10 out of 10. It could have been a 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10. There's no question. It could still be there. But we need to be accurate with the way we describe these things, because the more accurate we are, the easier it is to fix it. This is the thing. It actually becomes a lot when you're accurate with your language and how you describe it, becomes so much easier, because then you say, okay, I had pain all day Thursday. And when I look at all day, I have pain at work all day. I have pain in the evening. I was really tight. I was able to get to sleep after a while. And in the morning, I was stiff and sore getting up. Perfect. Wednesday, I was a bit better. I wasn't too bad. And then Friday, it was actually okay. It calmed down a small bit. Saturday, it got worse again. Perfect. So now what we need to do is we need to look at, okay, how do we improve it on a Thursday and how do we improve it on a Saturday? That's how it is. That's why even though I'm coming across as sharp in a lot of ways, if we want to make change, you have to do that. And that's so important. I'll repeat it again. If you want to make change, if you actually want to make change, because some people don't want to make change. That's huge, and I've come across that a lot, is that there's some people that would prefer not to make change and prefer to kind of keep it as normal because it's what they've become used to. So that's why I really emphasize the point. If you want to make change, if you want to improve, if you want it to be better, you need to be precise with the language you use. Okay, really important, really, really important. I'm going to drive that home. And I really don't mean to offend anyone with that. I don't mean to piss anyone off. And I know it will piss people off, but it's just the way it is. Because we have to be honest. And I'm not going to be out here bashing people. I want to help you fix it. That's what I've been doing for the last 6 years, is helping people to fix it. Sometimes there's some harsh realities and harsh truths in that point. I'm someone who will say to you straight away if I feel that you need to work on something a small bit more, and if you're avoiding something, if you're not taking responsibility for it. Because, as I said, I want you to make change. I want you to improve it. I want you to get back and start doing the things. I'm not lying. I'm not bullshitting when I say that. I genuinely do. And there's ways that you can do it, and there's ways that you can push it off to the side and leave it and not get better. So let's look at it. The reason that it actually keeps reoccurring is that, as I said, it's not mechanical, it's neurological. It's at a lower level. And what that means is that certain areas kick up more so than others. So for you, it could be your back or your shoulder or your neck. For someone else, it could be their hip or their knee. But what happens is you get these burn spots, is how I describe them, on your nervous system. And the burn spots, what they are basically is, it's very interesting. You actually have a change on a molecular level. And what I mean by that is that your body actually, your nervous system, the threshold to when pain kicks up drops in certain areas. So when you have, for example, trained on it, and this is why the Thursday, Friday one is a good one. When you have, let's say, trained on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and you've done a bit of a gym session, or you may have gone for like a run, or you were out with friends, and let's say your energy has been drawn from you a bit more. The level at your back where the burn spot is, and the reason I use the word burn spot is it has changed on a molecular level in terms of the threshold to when pain and tightness will kick up. Similar to, let's say, the ankle, when you sprain it, it flares up altogether. This is the exact same, but it's on your nervous system now, in your back. When you get fatigued, when you get tired, and you're stressed out and you're pissed off, and everything feels like it's going away from you, that burn spot can flare up at a lower level. Even if you sleep poorly, that can kick up. And sometimes it can be an area that you've had a previous injury. And that's why, like, people who've had surgery and like a shoulder or a back or a hip or wherever it is, that's most likely the area that they have the burn spot in at the time. And that will flare up more so than others. And what I often say to people is that if you've had a knee surgery before and then you start going back running, your knee is going to kick up first, because that's the one that the threshold of pain is the lowest. If you keep going, then other areas may kick up, but the knee is going to be the first one to kick up. And how it flares up, when I talk about a flare up, I talk about pain, I talk about tightness, and I talk about spasms. All of these can come with the flare up, depending on the degree of the flare up and depending on your reaction to it. And the interesting thing is with chronic back pain is that if you've ever had a muscle cramp, okay, a muscle cramp and a back spasm are physiologically the same thing, okay? Pain-wise, for people, they feel so much different. But physiologically, it's the same thing. It's the muscle is cramping, the muscle is tensing and relaxing. The same as if you get like a calf or a hamstring cramp. None of them are nice. I don't think anyone enjoys it, or anyone is going to be going out of their way looking for one. But it is physiologically the same thing, but it's your response to it that causes it to get worse. That's why back spasms get so severe, is because people's fear of how bad it can get will drive their pain up higher and will drive the response even more. So you'll start tensing, you'll start really gripping your back. I hope now when I'm getting through these, you might have to listen to this podcast twice and read the email guide to get an understanding of this. But I'm telling you all this first, because if you understand it, then you can make change. You really can make change, and I'm trying to emphasize that so much that it takes work, but you can do it. Like, you can do it, but you need to understand these concepts first. So when it flares up and you get pain and tightness once it's been overworked, this can stick around for days at a time, or weeks or months even. And that's why That is why you get pain. When I say that, do you have pain all the time every day, or do you have pain at certain times of the year, certain months, certain times of the month? For women, when it's around the time of their period, they're going to oftentimes have higher levels of pain with these issues. Okay? It's important to understand that, because their nervous system is a bit more on how would you say, high alert in ways. So with that, it can stick around for days, it can stick around for weeks. But what we need to do to help it calm down is we need to try turn the whole sensitivity of the body down. Because what will happen is that when it starts to flare up, first off, for the threshold to break and then everything to flare off, the sensitivity of the body needs to increase as well. Okay, so what that means is that your whole system starts to get a bit more on edge. And that's why stress is a huge one. To go down, I'm going to have a little tangent now for a second, but stress is a massive one, because stress causes naturally the when you look at it on a neurological level, all stress is you're turned your nervous system up, so you're more alert, or you turn it down. It can only be one or the other. That's why when you're sleeping, your nervous system is turned down. When you're not sleeping, it's turned up. Okay, and if you get into a fighting situation, your nervous system is jacked up even higher. And then as you calm down, it's turned down. And that's why you feel really alert and really on edge when you're stressed out. And that's why when you are feeling calm, you are a lot more relaxed. And the body is relaxed and the muscles are relaxed. That's just natural, parasympathetic and sympathetic. That's what they're called. Rest and digest, or fight or flight. And you can't be in both of them at the same time. So let's say when the body is turned up and it's in more of a fight or flight, or it's in a consistent fight or flight state, this is where you can start to get these areas kicking up a bit more. And an easy example that I always give to people is, if you're ever on a call with the phone center or customer care or whatever, how often when you have the phone up to your ear, are you rubbing your neck? Just, oh, Jesus. Like really, you're noticing the tightness kick up out of nowhere a bit more. For me, this is a huge one, especially when like call centers, especially when you're on hold and you're waiting for them. You're just there and you're kind of rubbing the neck out. You don't really know why your neck is getting sore and tight, but it's getting sore and tight in that situation. And that's kind of a increase in sensitization in the body in a lot of ways. It's really interesting pain when you get an understanding of it, because you have a lot more knowledge of your own body. But the factors that are going to contribute to that, and the lifestyle factors that are going to contribute to kicking up even more, are huge.
What's up, guys? Robbie here. I hope you are enjoying the podcast so far. I want to take a moment just to personally ask you for your help. If you're enjoying the podcast, would you be willing to share it with someone you think would love it too? Maybe a friend, family member on social media, or even if you just brought it up in conversation with someone you know. The recommendation means the world to us, and it's because of people like you that we get to be able to produce this podcast on a weekly basis. So thank you so much for your support so far, and I would love if you could help us reach even more people who could benefit from it too. Really appreciate you, and we're going to jump straight back to the podcast.
Okay, and this is, now I won't go on too much longer. I'm trying to keep this podcast to a condensed, I'm going to try and condense this podcast so that you can listen to it a couple of times and get an understanding of it. As I mentioned, the lifestyle factors are going to cause your nervous system to either be turned up or turned down. Stress is going to cause it to turn up. What is stress? Stress is anything that you feel like you don't have control, in a general sense. So your body heightens alertness to try get a bit more control. I'm generally speaking. That's why in a conflict, in a situation where you're fighting with somebody, you have to heighten your alertness and you have to kind of be a bit sharper about what's going on. And that's a result of stress. And then when you are in a lot more control, you can go to bed and you can go to sleep. And that's when your nervous system gets turned down. Very generally speaking, but this is the way it is. It's an easy way to explain it. Now, if you sleep really poorly, the next day, your nervous system is going to be heightened. Okay, so that means if your nervous system is more alert the next day because it didn't get to sleep properly, and there's loads of, I can go down so many avenues here. When you sleep, your emotional, or when you sleep, or sleep deprivation, sleep deprived, your emotional regulation drops off. So your ability to regulate your emotions, whether that be fear, anxiety, happiness, sadness, you can get these mood swings a small bit more. That drops off because that's part of the REM sleep style of, or stage of sleep, I should say. So if we understand that, and we understand that, all right, I slept poorly on a Wednesday night, now I'm a bit more pissed off on a Thursday, and I have to go into work, and I have loads of meetings, and I have loads of things that I have to get done, and I have to come back, and I have to pick the kids up after school, and I have to go, and I said I'd meet my sister this evening, so I will meet her there, and I have to drop the kids off at training, and I have to pick them up later on, and I have to get a project done for work. All of these things are going to cause your body to be more on edge because you're in less control, and you have so many more things that you need to get done. So your whole system gets heightened. And when the whole system is heightened, what happens then? Think back to what I said earlier on about the molecular change in the body. Think back to what I said about the fact that your nervous system has burn spots on it based off injuries that you've had in the past. Now that you start to understand that, okay, my whole system is on edge, I have those little burn spots where places I've had surgery or I've had an injury before are going to start kicking up. And if those burn spots start kicking up, what happens next? I start to get muscle tightness, and I also start to get pain because the threshold of pain has lowered on those spots. So the whole system is heightened, and now these burn spots are starting to cause your back to get tighter and are causing your back to give you more pain. And then it could be your glute is starting to give you more pain and your hamstring starting to give you more pain, because that's the pattern that it kicks up in, and it starts to move down along. If you understand this, and once you get, I know you're going to get an understanding of this, and this might be the first time you've heard this, but once you get an understanding of this, you can start to recognize patterns. I have more pain on a Thursday because I'm more fatigued. I have more pain on a Friday because I'm more fatigued, and it's more in the mornings than the evening, because in the evening I'm off work and I'm a bit more relaxed and I can calm down for the weekend. I had a very interesting case with a lady, really nice lady. She was getting severe pain in her back, and it was causing spasms, and it felt to her like it was like an 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10 every single day. And when we died, it took us a while to kind of get to the bottom of this, because we were looking into it. We were trying to figure out where it was coming from and what was causing it. But once I asked her about work, and I was saying, are you having conflict with anyone at work? Are you fighting with anyone? Or is there anyone you don't want to see? Because it was at work is when it was kicking up the most. And fair play to her, she was actually working in a primary school, so I can only imagine that the nervous system was heightened because of all the kids running and shouting around. But there was somebody at work that she was avoiding at the time. There was a person that she did not want to see and did not want to come in contact with because something had happened. I didn't get into the details on it too much about why it was, because I didn't want to. I felt that it wasn't my place to do that. But what this was doing was causing her to avoid that person. She was going getting like cups of tea. She was trying to stay out of the room when they came in. And it was a very interesting set of events, because when she was going out getting cups of tea, and she was basically dodging this person. So she was always on edge in work, which heightened the nervous system. She was getting the cups of tea, which made her drink, like, at the end of the day, it was looking at like 8 to 12 cups of tea per day, which is a huge amount of caffeine, which is also going to heighten your system even more. And then as a result, she had a lot of pain, so she found it difficult to exercise, but she still did exercise in a lot of cases, and her sleep had dropped off completely. So the sleep that she was getting was so poor because of the amount of caffeine that was in her system, and it was like basically building up on top of each other. So you had the caffeine, you had the issues at work, you had the fatigue, you had the kids. There was loads of different factors, but this was all having an effect on her sleep. And her sleep was dropping off massively. So it was saying that she was getting whatever 5 or 6 hours a night. But I would say if she was getting an hour of actual good quality sleep in that, I'd be surprised because of the amount of caffeine in it. Interesting thing about caffeine, as a side, people don't usually think caffeine's in tea, but it is. Caffeine stops you getting into this REM sleep state, and REM sleep is more of the emotional regulation state. So if you have high levels of caffeine in your system, it can affect your back pain with a cascade of events. So what we had to do is we had to first cut the caffeine down. Then we had to then set up boundaries around that person and how we could manage that better. Then we had to try change the fear, because she felt that the pain was coming from somewhere else. But we were able to figure out that it was only there at certain days of the week. And it was only there when she was in contact with this person. And afterwards, when everything was still there and she was thinking on it, as she found herself overthinking in a lot of cases of her interactions. That was heightening it again. So we had to plan around this. But once it was amazing. It was amazing. Once we fixed the caffeine issue, that led to her having better sleep. And once we had better sleep, that led to dropping her pain significantly. And I'm talking about from an 8 or a 9 to a 3 or a 4. Like, dropped it significantly within a couple of days. And then once we were able to manage that, then we could start working on exercises a small bit more. And we started to focus on actually leaning into it and how we could fix it with breathing exercises as well. But without understanding that, if I was just loading on exercises, which happens to a lot of people, and if I had just told her that it's as a result of a bulging disc, that pain sensitization would have been extremely high and it would never have come down, and then she would have gotten, it would have went to the stage that she would have gotten a surgery. And because the pain is so high, and what I always say is, if you go to a consultant looking for advice on what to do, okay, it's like going to a Ford dealer looking for a Volkswagen. It's not happening. Okay, they have only a certain amount of options in their arsenal. They're not bad people, but they have a certain amount of options in their arsenal, and they will give you those options. The same as if you went to a dietitian, they would give you the options that they have. Okay? That's the important thing, is understanding that if you are looking to get back and start moving more and exercising more, you need to focus. That needs to be the primary part of your goal. But if you go to a consultant, they don't really have that option in their arsenal. So they can't do that as much. And that's why people get surgeries for these issues. And then what happens with the surgeries is you have to take the time out as a result after, because it's the higher level. And as a result, then people are pushed in surgeries that they really don't need. But we won't go into that right now. But that really annoys me in a lot of ways, because I think that it's just people are getting surgical procedures, and then it's actually really only when you're looking at these chronic conditions, a lot of times it's just heightening the level or increasing the burn spot. So you've more to work against in future. But when you understand that there's lifestyle factors, and sleep is going to be a huge one, that are going to cause your sensitization to increase, first thing is you go after, and I'll start talking about this now, is you need to go after that pain sensitization and take it down. But without understanding that your pain is not always mechanical, and you breaking the belief that it's always mechanically generated, then once you have that belief broken, you can go about fixing it, because you take the pain down. You notice that, okay, I'm having pain, but if I start working on this, it's not going to make it any worse. I'm not going to injure myself anymore, and I can cause that pain to reduce. Then you're looking at focusing on, when something flares up, you have a certain set of tactics and strategies that you can use to calm it down. That's the next one. The problem is that, as I said at the start, most physios don't understand this topic. Like, they really, really don't understand it, or even doctors and consultants, because it's not new research, but it's because the Chinese have known it for years, but it's not new research, but it is coming around more than it was before. And because they don't know how to explain it, it's easier to give a diagnosis, and hopefully it calms down. And that's why people jump between physios. I tried this person, it didn't work. I tried this person, it didn't work. It's just because they're getting different explanations to the issue, and it's not actually giving them the root cause of it. That's why I had to put out the ebook, and I'm getting a lot of good reviews on the ebook so far, because people are starting to get an understanding of, okay, this makes a lot more sense for me. So we need to understand that I'm not getting more pain because I'm injuring the area more when it comes to chronic back pain, or an ongoing back pain, or recurring or persistent back pain, whatever way you want to call it. The reason I'm getting pain is because my system has become extremely sensitized, and I have these burn spots on my system that need to be improved. And if I let the system be really sensitized and I don't take care of the burn spot, and I believe that any bit of pain is going to be more of a problem and it causes me a lot of fear, then you're never giving that threshold a chance to improve. The same as what I often say to people is, if you go to the gym and you do bicep curls, or if you do a chest or back workout, if you do a leg workout's probably the easiest, your legs are going to be really sore 2 days after. But you know, you're not afraid of that pain. You know that pain is as a result of you doing a good gym session 2 days before. And you know that the next time you go in, that's not going to happen as much. And then when you have that in mind, you're going to keep going. Well, it's the exact same with this. It is the exact same with this. But because it's taken longer, because it's developed over time, it takes a small bit longer to improve. So that's why I always go about understanding. If you don't understand it, you'll be You'll be doing exercises till the cows come home, and it's not going to improve. Well, it will improve to a certain extent, but you need to understand why it's kicking up so much. So that's why once you understand it, then you can teach them how to fix it. And when you're looking at fixing it, it's really important to have an approach that has certain goals in mind, and that also work on the identity side of things, where you don't identify as a person with pain, and you're trying to break that pattern where you identify with someone who has a bad back or has a lot of pain, because there's more emotional stuff that contribute to that as well. Because the emotional side of things, and it's hard to go all into it all in one podcast, but the emotional side of things can contribute to that burn spot building massively as well. And then what you're doing is you're isolating each area. You're focusing on taking down the whole system sensitization by improving your sleep, improving your hydration, working on certain movements that will improve your confidence in your body, because I said it's all about confidence and control. Once you have that done, then you can start to work specifically on the areas of the burn spot, where you start to work on a strength and mobility and then more control. And you try to break those psychological negative patterns that are causing you to fall back into it, where it's, okay, it's my posture is causing all this pain again. Because now that you've listened to the whole podcast, I can say it again, that's a really easy way out, in a way, is to blame it all on your posture or all on the MRI results. That's an easy way out. And it's not easy, but it's the simplest option, because it doesn't take into account all the other factors, and it's a simple diagnosis. Like another diagnosis, if you have a sprained ankle, you have a sprained ankle. Very simple. You can put it all in one box and you know how to take care of it. And that's the good thing about a diagnosis. But when it comes to a chronic issue, it's a lot of times you've been given too many diagnoses, and they've been masked by painkillers and wrong massages and all these other things that are only short-term relief, and as a result it's caused this to kick up. So when you focus on taking down the whole system sensitization because you understand what's causing it, then you work on the strength because you need that control, the mobility, and the psychological patterns that are continually bringing you back to the same place where it flares up, you overreact or you catastrophize, and you feel that, okay, this is the worst thing that it could possibly be, which levels up the pain more again, and then which as a reaction, then you start to do nothing because you want to rest, or you want to sit back and you want to give it a chance to calm down, as opposed to going after it. In those cases, that's only building on top of it. So we need to work on it a different way. We need to go after it. When it flares up, we need to have options and strategies and tactics that we can use to help the pain calm down. And then we need to work into it a small bit more. And it's the consistency. This is the thing. It's the consistency of knowing that it's going to take a bit of trial and error, that there's not one exercise that's going to fix it. There's not one way of fixing it. That you need to take care of everything together. And having that in mind and changing the time frame of, I want this to be better in the next 2 weeks or the next 2 days, which is what drives people to these short-term things, or the next day, I want this to be fixed right now. And understanding that this is a work. It's a work of art, in a way. It's a work of art, that this is something that I will need to continue to work on for a while. Whether that be 5 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, doesn't matter. As long as you're making progress towards it, your pain will reduce, your fear will reduce, your confidence will increase. The flare-ups will go from every day to once every 2 weeks, to once a month, to once where you haven't had it in 3 months and 6 months and 9 months. And in my clients, I was on a call to a client recently, and it was a great one. I've been with them for a while because they have different goals and they're looking at working on different things, whether that be running marathons or climbing mountains or whatever it is. And they said, I haven't had a back flare-up, proper one, that has sidelined me in 2 years. 2 years from somebody who wasn't able to walk because of the back, when their back flared up, and had to keep dropping out of work and taking work off and taking painkillers and going around in circles. 2 years is a significant time to not have a back flare up, and it's enough time for me to say that the burn spot is majority healed. Okay, I'm very happy when people come back and say that, because it's like, okay, we've gotten to the bottom of this, we've broken the negative patterns, we've built strength, and we've built confidence, and now we can just continue to change our identity and work on becoming a better, stronger, more confident person, more competent person, and build on ourselves on a day-to-day. But that's going to be all for me today, guys. If anyone is interested, check out that ebook. It's like this podcast. It goes into a bit more detail on it, on the chronic pain. Sometimes this, because it's a different perspective and it might be a game changer for a lot of people, it takes a while to kind of activate those brain centers and get an understanding of what's contributing to it. So check out that ebook. The other thing is that if anyone is interested, check out the Spine Initiative. So it's www.spineinitiative.com. It's the program I have available at the moment. It's something that I've been working on for, I've been working on it for a while, but I've been working with people for 6 years. And the reason I'm so confident in this is that I truly believe that there's no professional out there who has had more contacts with people with chronic injuries than me. And I say that confidently because I've been with people that I talk to them. I have 2 contacts a week, a Monday and a Thursday in a lot of cases, every week for 2 years. So I understand why your sleep is one way. I understand why their pain is kicking up now and not before. I understand what's going on in their family, what's going on around them, what's going on in their life, how they are emotionally, how they are physically. I know all the exercise they've done for the last 12 months. I know every session that they've done for 12 months or 2 years. And I know which ones caused it to kick up, and I know what times of the year it has kicked up. While if you go to a physio, or if you go to a consultant, you have 2 contacts in a lot of cases. With a physio, you might meet them every 2 weeks, and it might be 6 times. And the majority of the time, they need to go after it, and they need to try to give you something that's going to relieve you on that day, because you won't come back to them if they don't. So that's why I'm in a good position that I can overlook at it, and I can say, okay, these are the actual factors contributing to it. These are the actual things causing you pain. If we take care of this and this, and we know that, the reason I say this is I know that when there's a family event coming up, this person is going to have more pain because there's people they don't want to meet at that family event. I know that, okay? I also know the people who their mother passed away or their father passed away at a time when the pain kicked up initially. And there are certain things that will contribute to that and the stress around it. Or somebody who has someone in their family has a terminal illness and their sensitization or their body is completely sensitized a lot, so we're looking at managing it more. I also know the people who used to have an identity of being a sports person and now has lost that identity because their confidence in their body has dropped massively because of the fact that the pain keeps kicking up. And I understand that most people in these cases, they just need a goal. They just need something to work on. They just need somewhere that they can get to, because that will give them the confidence back in their body. That will give them the confidence that even if it doesn't fix everything straight away, it gives you the confidence that if you are consistent and you work on something, even if it doesn't come back within a day or if it doesn't improve right that week, you will see improvements. And having that goal and achieving those small goals along the way builds your self-esteem, improves your self-confidence, because you know that if I continue on this path for another 6 months to a year, I'm going to be in a significantly better place and have a better life than where I am right now. And that's the thing. And that's why with the Spine Initiative program, I wanted to give people the tools and tactics and strategies. Huge part of it is about education. You have all the exercises there that work for it, but it helps you to understand why you do certain things. It has the journaling side of it that helps you to understand, okay, I need to reflect on this and see and help me figure out, okay, what is actually the cause. And then it has a 5K where you start to build back up into a running. And a lot of people don't even like running, but the idea of starting to build up, and if you hit a 5K mark, a lot of my clients said that's the point that I could see significant improvement. That's the point that I noticed that if I worked on something consistently, I was able to get there. And that's the point that I was able to say that if I continue doing this for another 6 months, 12 months to a year, I can get really anywhere I want to go to. And that's a huge thing. That's a huge thing for me to be able to see someone grow in that situation. But that's going to be all from me today, guys. I hope that you got a better idea. It might take you a couple of times to listen to this podcast to get a better understanding of it. I hope that I challenged your beliefs. That's the first thing, number one thing. I hope that I challenged your beliefs. And I challenged the idea that you feel that the body is broken and that you can't fix it, because you can always improve it. I won't go on too much longer. If anyone needs to check that out, check the description of this podcast, and I'm going to put the Spine Initiative program there. their method there. And I'm also going to put the free ebook below as well, so you can jump on that if you want to. If anyone has any questions, just reach out to me on Facebook at Mobility Tutor or Instagram at The Mobility Tutor, or you can email me at info@themobilitytutor.com. That's all for me today. I will chat to you all again soon, and have a good one.
Okay guys, thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you're looking to learn more about what we do, as well as check out any of the mobility and rehab programs we have available, just head over to the description of this podcast and you will find a link to all the programs there. As always, thank you for listening, and I will chat to you all again in the next episode. Have a good one.